start by introducing yourselves.
I'm Lindsay Roman. I guess, do you want to know a little bit about me? I'm a registered nurse. I got my bachelor's at Creighton University. I graduated in 2013. So I've been a nurse for 7 years. I worked in the surgical trauma ICU at KU Med for 4.5 years. And now I am working at Stormont Vail in their PACU, just PRN.
I'm Pat Roman. I'm a hand surgeon. I guess I went to med school at Dartmouth, did residency in plastic surgery at KU, and then hand surgery fellowship at UMass. So I've been doing that for about the past 2 years.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about why you chose to be a nurse and why you chose to be a surgeon and the path that you took to get there.
Okay. I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I did for a while there. And then found out that I'm really bad at math. So I didn't, I also knew I wanted to be a mom. So you can totally be a doctor and a mom. That's definitely doable. And I think that our current times are slowly evolving to make sure that that happens. And I think residencies are getting better and all of that stuff's getting a little bit better at those opportunities. So don't let that sway your opinion. I think it'll slowly get better with time. But my mom was a nurse too, so that kind of helped influence me to go and look into nursing. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry. So I applied at Creighton, which geez Louise, their nursing program is a little bit different than most, just because when you apply and if you're accepted, you're immediately into nursing school. So it's actually a 4-year program. You don't have to do like the 2 years of undergrad, apply for nursing school, and then do 2 years of nursing school. And it was an awesome education. I felt like it was really well-rounded, and it was a great 4 years. I got a lot out of it. So, and nursing has been awesome. The coolest thing about nursing is it's super flexible. If you start in one type of nursing and it's not for you, you can move to another type super easily. And that's a great thing about it. Even if you can go back and forth, you can switch things up, you can work night days, you can work anywhere. That's the other thing. They're needed everywhere. So it's really flexible. Your hours look so different. I mean, there's a lot of perks to being a nurse, and it's really fun. And you use your brain, and it can be really hard work sometimes, but it's really rewarding. So.
Why did you choose medicine?
All right. So I always wanted to be a doctor. I was always kind of like a fan of like biology, anatomy, things like that. And I didn't really try very hard until college when I started getting good grades. And I thought, let's give this a shot. So I took the MCAT, applied to med school, did 4 more years of actual med school now. So 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school. And then did 6 years of plastic surgery residency, which I wanted to do because with plastic surgery, you can operate anywhere in the body. And I thought that would be like a broad, like there's a lot of things you can do. And I thought I wouldn't get bored. But then once I did my residency, I kind of just specialized more into hand surgery. So I wanted to do a hand surgery fellowship. As it turns out, there's plenty of stuff to do in the hand. So still plenty of surgeries that I won't get bored. Hopefully. I've only been doing it for 2 years, so I hope I don't get bored. And if I do, I always have plastic surgery.
So I know that there's not a typical day in healthcare, but give us an idea of what a day would look like. Or common elements across each of the days, if that's easier.
Sure, yeah. At least for nursing, it's pretty typical. Every day looks similar. The only difference I think is like what kind of setting you're in. If you're in a clinic setting, it's going to look a lot different than if you're like in a hospital setting. But typically, I'm most familiar with a hospital setting. I haven't worked in a clinic. I've only been a patient in a clinic, but you walk in, you get report. Usually, they're long days. It's a 12-hour shift, but it ends up being about 13, sometimes 14 hours. And you get your report from your nurse and learn about your patients and look at all their charts, figure out what's going on, and then you go. And every unit has different rules on like how much you have to assess a patient. And it also depends on your patient, if they're really, really sick or if they're doing okay and they're stable. One might be way busier than the other. The settings inpatient also depend on some, like the ICU, usually you only have 2 or 3 patients. But if you're on the floor is what they call it, you're not as sick. So sometimes you'll have 6 to 8 patients. So those situations, you're pretty much just passing meds and getting blood sugars, and you're always going as a nurse in the hospital. You don't really stop besides to have lunch and sometimes go to the bathroom. But it's fun. I mean, I think there's days that I'm not going to sugarcoat it, kind of suck. I mean, it's hard. It's hard work. You're on your feet a lot. You're moving human beings that sometimes are very heavy. And you're sometimes not doing the most glorious of work. But I think that's what sometimes makes it, you get to just see a human in need in its rawest form almost, and you can be that person to help them, so that's similar, that's, and then you do all your things, and then you give report to your nurse that's taken on. And sometimes if your patients are there, you get to keep them, and that's always not fun, but it's always nice because you can kind of watch their progress and get to know their family members, and that's always nice and rewarding. But and sometimes it's new people, and that's a cool thing. There's not a day that's the same. Every day is different.
For me, well, it's about half the week is clinic, half the week is surgery. So I have my schedule pretty set. Certain half days are clinic, certain half days are surgery. I do call. So when I'm on call, I can be doing surgery on a weekend or in the middle of the night. So that's not great, but somewhat. I mean, people injure themselves all times of the day. But yeah, obviously, if you're a medical doctor, you just do, depending on what you can be doing clinical day or just doing rounds all day at the hospital. In my line of work, I guess in hand surgery, basically it's mostly clinic, and I rarely am at the hospital unless there's somebody else with other medical issues or something, or we're in a big trauma and then one of the injured parts happens to be a hand. But everything is mostly just outpatient, so I don't hang out at the hospital very much.
Unless he's in the OR.
Unless, yeah, surgery.
Which is his favorite place to be.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard about surgeons. They like to operate.
Yeah. You kind of have to do clinic because there's no way around it. If I could somehow just do surgery, I'd do that.
What did you all find to be the most surprising thing once you entered your fields?
I think for me, like you go through nursing school and you go through this education, and nursing school is not easy. There's not anything easy about it. And you go in there thinking, okay, like I graduated, I passed my NCLEX, I'm ready to go. And I think the biggest kind of slap in the face for me was like, you don't know anything. I mean, you know the basics, you know the foundation, but that honestly, the first like 2, maybe 3 years, you're still learning a ton. And everyone knows that. And everyone knows that when you're a new nurse, there's a million different things thrown at you at once, and you just go with it and you figure it out. And that's the other thing is like in medicine, things are changing all the time. So you might think you know one thing, and then research is done and studies are done, and that's not the best thing to do. And that's also the kind of the cool thing about it, is you're constantly learning, and things are changing, and you're figuring out how to, best help take care of someone. And so I think that was really surprising for me, was to be like, it was overwhelming at first, I won't lie. Like, I was like, holy cow, like these people's lives are in my hand, and I got to figure this out. And but it's also awesome, and no one ever leaves you in the dust. I mean, it's not like you're doing it alone, but they can definitely throw you some curveballs and keep you on your toes, but it's good. It's not a bad thing.
I've been thinking this whole time you were answering, like, most surprising. I don't know. I can't think of anything. I mean, I feel like this, I guess all through undergrad, it's like, oh, med school is going to be hard. I guess, yeah, there it is. Undergrad, I thought it was really, it wasn't hard. And, get straight A's. And then I go to med school, and it's like, okay, these are all people that have been getting straight A's their entire lives. So it wasn't as easy. All right, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But other than that, during med school, they prepare you for residency. That you're going to be worked to the bone, like you're going to be working crazy hours for little pay. So, I mean, that wasn't surprising. The same, and then after residency, things get a lot easier. So yeah.
Do you think part of the reason you felt comfortable once you got your MD and finished residency and started your position at the clinic is because of how well you were prepared in residency to handle just about anything that came your way?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's 6 years of training them plus 1 of fellowship, so 7 years total. You do it to the point that you're like, okay, let me out. I think I got it. So I think so. Yeah, that definitely helped.
What are some of the biggest challenges in your jobs?
My job, I'm working with the doctors. No, seriously, sometimes, not in a derogatory way or anything bad. It's just, we're at the bedside. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
We're there. Like, we are in the muck, and we see what's going on with the patient, and we're just, we're in it. And so when the doctors can't be there, that's why we're there. Like, they're doing surgery, or they have a bunch of patients, or all of that. So sometimes it's hard for them to see what you're seeing, and to be able to communicate that to them, or communicate a worry or a concern, and have them understand it on the level that you are feeling it and seeing it, can be a challenge sometimes. Or sometimes they just think they know it all, and they're always right. So sometimes you need to humble them a little bit. I think that sometimes is the biggest challenge. And the other thing is, nurses, we work really hard. It's really hard work. And so sometimes getting the things that you need to make your job easier, or the pay that you deserve is sometimes a challenge. I think hospitals are starting to recognize that a little bit better. But I definitely think there's room for improvement. Sometimes I think in medicine in general, there's people in offices who are making decisions for you that don't actually know what's going on, don't know what it's like to be like us, and they're the ones sometimes setting the policies. You're like, what? That makes no sense, or that's not how this works, or whatever, so sometimes that's a challenge, but I think most of the time it's figured out one way or the other.
I guess, like I mentioned earlier, I guess it is challenging when you're at home, and You just order dinner, and then you get called into the hospital because there's some guy with an injury that blew up their hand, or a table saw through the hand. So, or in the middle of the night or something like that. I mean, that's the hardest part, I think.
Yeah. COVID has brought a lot of DIYers to the plate who don't know what they're doing.
How many people had put a nail through their hand? A nail gun gone crazy.
I had like one of those. There was a 4-year-old yesterday with a nail through their hand because they fell on it.
Oh,
I think Pat's seen a lot of table saws lately.
Yeah, finger
Yes.
amputations, like tips.
Just
Oh.
snap right off.
Yeah.
so
And then snow blowers in the winter. That's what's gonna be next.
Snowblowers,
Snowblower.
lawnmowers too. Those are big culprits.
Yeah.
So I take it you all have a rivalry over who works harder.
I mean, no, it's obvious. It's an obvious answer. I do.
I mean, not
Hunky.
currently, like a nurse to doctor.
Well, again, I do.
Wow. This is what I say. Pat goes type, 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 cut, 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 type, 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 type. And I'm sweating, turning, bathing, wiping, sticking needles in. That sounds a lot harder to me.
Just a couple more questions. What would you suggest for students interested in the healthcare field? What should they be doing now as undergrads?
I think the last time we did this, I think the biggest thing is to, it's really hard to know, like, yes, I have an idea that I want to be a doctor or I want to be a nurse. But like to know that you really want to do that. I mean, there's so many different positions and opportunities in healthcare, right? Like that I didn't even know about as a nurse until I got into the work field. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, you know? There's respiratory therapy, there's physical therapy, occupational therapy, there's, did I say speech? Yeah, speech paths. There are so many things. So if there is a way to, if you can find a connection to get in the hospital to shadow these people, CRNAs, physician assistants, nurse practitioners. I mean, a lot of stuff I didn't know about, you know, and that is kind of hard to figure out about unless you're there or you know someone who has that job. So shadow these people. I know that I would be more than happy to have someone shadow me as long as my hospital was okay with it, you know, because that's how you're going to see, and that's how you're going to know, like, oh yeah, like I could do this, or this is really interesting to me, or someone barfs in you and you're like, no, not good. You know, this isn't for me, you know, I got to figure something else out, you know? So trying to make those connections and networking. And I think the other thing I had mentioned last time is, if you know what you want to do, if you're confident in that, try to get a job. Like, let's say you want to be a nurse, or honestly, even if you want to go to med school, getting a job like on a unit as a unit secretary doesn't seem like much, right? Like, doesn't seem like it would be something that you could be able to see, but I will tell you, those unit secretaries know a lot, see a lot. And it's a great way to kind of have like your eyes open to all the opportunities that there are. Or a CNA, a nurse aide. Those are the people who are right next to me, helping me do a lot of stuff that they would be able to see a lot of different things. I know that Pat just had a physician, a guy who's interested in going to physician assistant school, shadow him and his physician assistant. So he got to see that, you know, a physician assistant isn't just in a clinic. They can go in the OR and they can do surgery or help do surgery, you know? So that's the best way, is just to get out there and put your foot out there and ask. Even being like a hospital volunteer, you could probably see a lot more than you think. So just getting out there and, you know, just knowing like the nature of healthcare workers, we all are very open to, like, we constantly are orienting and precepting, and we're open to sharing that. Like, and so if you do know someone, ask. The worst answer you can get is no, and then you just move on to someone else, but I think that's the best way to go about it. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Just shadow, find out exactly what it is that people do and what other opportunities there are available.
So what is one of the most memorable cases that each of you have had, or one of your most memorable patients?
Oh man, I have a lot. Do you have one that you can think of?
I'm thinking about it. I don't.
For some reason, like this isn't a memorable patient for me, but there was one time he was in plastic surgery and I was in the trauma ICU, so we wouldn't see each other a lot. But he actually had to work 2 weeks on nights when I was working nights on my unit. And I remember I was a new nurse, I was pretty new, and we were in this corner, but me and another new nurse were in the corner by ourselves, and Pat comes in with this gunshot wound trauma that's coding. So like people are doing CPR on this patient, and they're like, help, we need more people. And so like,
they started coding. Yeah.
They started.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was trying to get a big IV in their neck, Pat was, and they started coding. And so, the nurse yells, help, we need more people. And I run in there, and I didn't even know Pat was in there trying to do something. And I'm doing compressions, and I look over and Pat's in his sterile field and he's just watching. And it's just weird to be in, like to be doing that together, I guess, in a way. That's kind of the most memorable experience I have with us. Like, I never thought that we would both be trying to save a patient's life at the same time. It's just kind of weird. I don't think that'll ever happen again.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully not. But otherwise, I mean, there are so many like different touching stories, you see a lot, at least in the unit I worked in, a lot of it is trauma, right? So you're just going on with your day, and then all of a sudden your life changes within 5 seconds. You get in a car accident, you fall off a ladder, there's so many things that can happen, right? And so I think like the biggest takeaway I got from working on that unit was like, life is fragile, and things can change within seconds. And I had the privilege and opportunity to be a person who can help get your life back, and get you back going. And that's awesome. That's really cool. Like some days they suck, like they're not fun and they're hard. They're really hard. But it's cool. It's a cool thing to do. And it's touching, you get to see a person in their most vulnerable state and help them get back to hopefully help them get back to where they started, Did you have a touching patient?
I mean, memorable. I guess I've done a lot of. Memorable for me is just a cool surgery. Because usually nobody's. I guess very rarely. I guess you would see a hand injury where it's life threatening. It's more like, and rarely, because I'm at a level 2 trauma center, rarely I would see something that's life or limb threatening. So I've done, I can think of a case of an 18-year-old that fell through some glass. Questionable story, but it's just she fell through some glass and cut her a nerve right up here on her arm. And the thing about it is that by the time the nerve heals and goes all the way down to the hand, if you just put it back together and let it heal, the muscles in the hand are going to die by then. So in order to prevent that, you have to do a nerve transfer from another nerve and then pass it kind of like a circuit, like electricity. You just need to pass another nerve to kind of use it for the meantime while her big nerve heals. So that's kind of a cool case. And yeah, there are a lot of things like that I do that I think are pretty cool.
Okay, so my last question, One of the things that I think television shapes a lot of people's perception of the healthcare career. And I think you two sitting there with your cute baby, met at the hospital, sort of give a little bit of credence to like the Grey's Anatomy love story. So first off, tell me if it's really like Grey's Anatomy at the hospital, and then what it's like to be married to somebody that's in the same profession, same field as you.
Okay. It's definitely not like Grey's Anatomy. I think,
It is. It is. Yeah, of course
Okay.
it is. And she was new when we met, so that's why she wouldn't know.
yeah, I came to the Kansas City being like, okay, I'm gonna be single and just enjoy my life a little bit. And then I met Pat like 2 weeks in, and we started dating. I was like, don't tell anyone we're dating, because I didn't want to be that new nurse who came to KU, who started dating a doctor right away. I actually did, I wanted to work and learn and be a nurse. So apparently it is. But I mean, if you work at a teaching hospital, you are going to run into a lot of young residents and young nurses and just young professionals in general. I mean, that's a huge mecca for just learning, right? And education. And so you are getting, there are going to be a lot of single people, and maybe you can have your own version of Grey's Anatomy if you want. What was it? Oh, and so working with Pat, I think it's awesome. Actually, I think we totally understand each other's jobs, like the ins and outs of it completely. And sometimes I tell him what to do, like what would be smarter to do as a clinician.
I don't know about that. But yeah, it's fun, I guess, coming home and telling her, about my day, and she knowing what I'm talking about.
It's really nice. And like, we can appreciate the good things and the bad things of each other's jobs and be there for each other in those regards. It's always refreshing to know that. Yeah, I think it's good. I like it.
All right, awesome. Do you guys have anything else that you would like to add that you think everybody needs to know?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, definitely just get yourself out there. I think that's the biggest thing. And, don't be afraid to ask, to shadow or to volunteer or any of that, because that's the only way you're going to know. And you're going to save yourself a lot of time if you put that effort in the beginning to figure out what you think you're going to like. Because it's important to like what you do, I'm so sorry, my kid's not normally this loud. Yeah, I think the healthcare system is a great avenue to work in. I don't think you'll ever be out of a job. If just basic foundation, you'll always have a job as a healthcare worker. So yeah, I think that's my 10 cents.
Awesome,
And
thank you.
yes. You have anything else? You good?
No, you covered it.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Of
Thank
course.
you.